Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I am going to be making this mushroom moon suncatcher. It will be available on my Etsy. I'll link it in the description box below. So for this one we're just going to do a very classic color combination. I have this red model for the mushroom caps. The model effect gives like the little spot effect on the mushrooms, which looks really cool. Got some just random opaque white for the stems. Got this bullseye white model for the moon, and this oceanside wispy white for the sky. So only two colors, but it's going to be really pretty. Now I'm tracing on the back side of this model sheet, so I have to remember to flip my pattern over. Oh no, my marker's dying. Mottled glass is not the easiest to cut. Sometimes it goes really nicely though. Okay, now let's cut the hardest piece in this pattern. Alright, so there are multiple ways you can do it. You can use a saw and just cut it out and be done with it. Nothing wrong with using a saw. You can break it out piece by piece, or you can try to do it in one go with the silver schnitz or something. We'll try this one with the silver schnitz. Okay, you hear that open? That worked out pretty great. I'm actually, you could cut that out and pull it out with like your narrow nose pliers. I'm just going to err on the side of caution and just grind that out because I don't want to mess it up. I use my narrow pliers. These narrow pliers are so handy. we have some grinding to do now. Shouldn't take very long. I want to mention, so this is how the underside of the top mushroom is going to look. I broke it up into 3 pieces of glass just so it's less work than cutting all of these pieces. And then these thin lines are going to be, I think, 20 gauge wire, and these 2 thicker lines and these 2 thicker lines are going to be 18 gauge wire. So yeah, that'll give it the detail that we want on the underside of the mushroom. Okay, so because this pattern is round, it's very important that we get our edges matched up nicely, because nobody wants a wonky circle. So I just put my piece back on the pattern and check any spots that need to be adjusted. Okay, and now we have a perfect fit. Just have to grind the rest of the pieces now. Okay, now this is the piece where if you have a ring saw, you can just cut that out really quick. But what we're going to do is we're just going to grind it, starting with the 3/4 inch bit, and then we will go to the 1/4 inch bit. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, so I just have to make a couple more adjustments on this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. Okay, now we can get to foiling, but first what I always do is clean off all the paint marker with alcohol. I found these little reusable cloth pads at IKEA, so I thought that might be cool. Spray in some alcohol. Okay, before I get started foiling, couple things I need to decide. I am going to leave this piece silver, so I'm going to use silver-backed foil on my clear pieces. I'm also going to use silver-backed foil on my white pieces, just because the glass, if you use copper foil, I've mentioned this in other videos, if you use copper foil, like copper-backed foil, or black-backed foil, it takes on the color of the foil. So like if I used copper, it would give it this copperish glow that I don't want, and if you use black, it just makes the glass look darker. And silver just keeps it nice and bright. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then around the mushroom, I will be edge beading, so I'm going to foil that completely. But around the moon and sky, I'm going to be using RU01 hobby came. So I don't need to foil that part, especially on a piece this small. You really don't need to foil it. So I'm mostly going to be using 7/32 foil. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I like to use multiple widths of foil in a single project. And sometimes that's just because I want thinner lines in places and thicker lines in other places, or it's because there's a variation in the thickness of the glass, so you need to adjust your foil width if you want to keep consistent lines. And I know someone's going to ask, this burnisher, I do not know where it came from. I do not know where you can get it. It is one of the tools that I inherited from my grandpa. It's what him and my grandma always used to burnish their foil. I don't know what this is. I don't know what it's made out of. All I know is it's very old, and you can see it's very worn out. Supposedly, when this wears out, you're supposed to file it on like sandpaper, and then you can get that wedge again, which is kind of cool. I haven't had to do that yet. I mean, it's like the perfect groove for foiling right now. See, sometimes I use this part to burnish, but when I'm doing a lot of foiling, my hand gets tired, and then I like to use this fid. I never got into those hand foilers. I have a couple, I don't like them. I don't know if it's just because most of my pieces are really tiny, and it just seems like it's more hassle to use the hand foilers. Then after I foil the piece, I bring it to my pattern, set it where it needs to go, and then pin it into place. Okay, now this red mottled glass that I used for the mushroom cap is a little bit on the thicker side, and because this edge is going to get edge beading, I want to use wider foil. So I'm going to use my 1/4 inch foil, which I rarely use. So mottled glass is kind of wavy sometimes, so getting the foil centered, you kind of have to like zigzag it a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about for foiling is the mushroom gills, which is this part right here. I'm going to foil these sides with 3/16 inch foil, and then I'll use my 7/32 foil around the outside, because I want, these are my break lines in here, but they're also supposed to represent the gills like these lines, and I want to keep them consistent. So if I use 3/16 foil here, it'll give me a nice thin gill line, and then I can use 18 gauge wire, and that'll match up with those solder lines, and it'll look consistent. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. The lines are nice and thin now, so this is the 18 gauge wire. I can use that one, or I think the size lines up better with the 16 gauge. So you can use either one. I'll probably end up using 16 gauge and then 20 gauge in between each one. So before I start soldering, I'm going to roughly figure out how much came I need, and then go and stretch it. Okay, it's nice and stretched. So I'm going to use Amerway's Tiger's Eye Flux and Amerway's Sapphire 6040 solder. I've got my soldering iron set to 410. I have my fume extractor that I turn on. I've got my mask with the vapor cartridges and some gloves. Okay, just finished soldering. It looks really nice. Now we have to clean it. I clean it multiple times. I'm going to start with Dawn Power Wash and baking soda. So I just kind of sprinkle it on, spray. And then I have this brush. I just get wet with really hot water and scrub away. So now there are a couple of things you can do when leaving it silver. You can polish it with a metal polish and that'll get super shiny silver. Or in the cleaning process you can use a magic eraser and that'll give it kind of like more of a matte finish, which is also really pretty. The baking soda also kind of gives it a little bit of a matte finish because it's an abrasive. Okay, next I'm going to take CJ's Flex Remover and a melamine sponge in hot water. And then I just take a little bit more CJ's and a toothbrush and really make sure I got in every nook and cranny. Okay, now the last thing I need to do is wax and buff the piece. You can just use plain Carnauba wax. I like to use a cleaner wax. You can use like Mother's Car Brand cleaner wax. You can use Clarity Finishing Compound, which is what I use a lot. Today I'm just going to use Liva. I need to use this stuff up. So you want to give it a really good shake because when the bottle's sitting there, the wax separates from the cleaning agents. So you want to shake it up. And then we're going to rub it in because we want it to really polish up. Okay, then we'll let that dry. I'll do the other side, let that dry, and then buff it off. So when I'm buffing the wax, I find it super helpful to use a toothbrush because it really gets all of the wax out of the tough spots, like underneath these wires.